So I'm going to start at the beginning. You've been doing this a very long time, but everybody is somebody's first time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So you were there at the birth of punk, essentially, and, you know, as the story goes, that's how the Alarm formed. Want to take us back to that?
So I saw the Pistols for the first time in October '76, and history now tells me that was about a week before the 100 Club Festival, where they got a lot of notoriety from, but at that point they were pretty unknown. I'd only seen a little bit about them. I'd seen the bit in the Melody Maker where Steve Jones said, we're not into music, we're into chaos. And I thought, that sounds good. And I used to go to this club called Quaint Ways in Chester, just across the border into England from North Wales, and it was a Monday night rock club, and I saw the Groundhogs in there, and I saw Thin Lizzy with Eric Bell on guitar, and
Nice.
As a three-piece, and all sorts of hardcore rock bands, if you like, from prog through to power trios like Budgie and all that sort of thing.
Lord.
And then so the Pistols came along. They were a challenge to that, because when I saw all the other bands, they wanted to be liked. They'd come on stage and introduce themselves, and they'd play solos and wanted to be appreciated through their musical prowess. The Pistols didn't care monkeys about any of that. They came on, Rotten stared at you right eye to eye like no one had ever done before. It was confrontational. He was so self-assured. Even when things went wrong, like they broke strings and that, he just took the audience on. They couldn't get over it. They were shouting, trying to taunt him with shouts of hot rods and play another chord. And they played Substitute early on, played it. See, at that time as well, in '76, we were all Who fans, but our vision of the Who was the modern image, and it was Woodstock and the 20-minute version of My Generation with guitar solos, and Pistols stripped Substitute back down to the 3-minute meaty beaty big and bouncy kind of version, which people had sort of forgotten about. And so they were really direct. They were, you know, the bootlegs at the time, like the one from Burton on Trent. You can hear that how tight they were with Matlock on bass.
Yeah.
And obviously when Sid came in, it became a joke and became
Parody
rock
of itself.
party time, and that wasn't what the band was about. And it's that they were a serious band. They had great lyrics, great look. I mean, they had a Sven Garley behind them like no one else had before, in Malcolm McLaren and Vivian Westwood and Jamie Reid. They have 3 incredible talents behind them, and Bernie Rhodes at the start, you know. And so that, you know, I don't think they'd have been the same band without those people. But all bands are a gang. The Alarm was a gang. You know, we would have been the same band without Red Eye, who now works with Bob Dylan, or Gaz Tarp, who was a TV presenter who helped make our first single.
The video on, I believe it was called The Millennium Dust from the Little Alien.
Yeah, he was on Get Fresh, wasn't he? But yeah, we just reminded ourselves that when we took the Alarm in '81 to London to try and make it, last 3 months of '81, me, Red and Gaz were in together, and they were the people I'd take my songs to before anyone else. Because you need confidence, you know, as a song, when you're young and you're a songwriter, you haven't got the courage to see it through all the way just on your own, not really, no. And so you need a little bit of Dutch courage before you play it to the rest of a very sceptical band. So I'd always play it to Gaz, Red, Davey, my mate. You know, they'd hear the songs before I would talk to anyone else. And they gave me the courage to think, yeah, this is going to be great, let's go in and play them 68 guns now, you know.
Constant output since 1981, and there was something a couple of years ago with the Poppy Fields and 45 RPM where you realised that in new music we trust slogan that's been thrown around seems to only apply to new bands. And quite frankly, you pulled a fast one.
Yeah.
So, and it's now led into the movie Vinyl, loosely based on that story. Tell us about how that came about and how you set it up and fooled everyone.
We were doing this thing. We were making the first. It was a new era for the Alarm. It wasn't the same. The band had reconvened, but it was a different lineup. You know, it started with Eddie McDonald and me playing some gigs with Big Country, and it became the Alarm again. At first it was just playing the stuff I was known for from the 80s, because I hadn't played it for 10 years. And it was in the year 2001, 2 and 3, and Pete was saying everywhere I went, that's amazing, let's have some more Alarm music, and I felt all of a sudden the door opened up back into that world again. I was playing Unsafe Building, I was playing songs like One Step Close to Home, even. I was playing either Hurricane or playing Strength from the Strength album, or Knife Edge, and I was realising there was ideas I'd just put I just closed the door on it all, and they were all banging on the outside trying to be heard again, and trains of thought needed to be pursued again. By going into the catalogue, I was immersing myself in my former self, if you like, but realising that I'd left a lot behind that needed bringing forward again. The alarm was defined by the lyrics that I'd written. It was my story, but so I felt, wow, hang on, it was like meeting your past head on, and I realised I was singing, particularly Strength and Unsafe Building. I was singing those songs, and I was thinking, oh, these need carrying on, and so I started making in the Poppy Fields Bond. We made 5 albums in 5 months, and it was a really intense workout for everybody, particularly for me and the songwriting front. But I started going to songs which I would not have played or pursued if I hadn't used up all the stuff I thought was great. I thought, well, let's have a look at this. This doesn't fit with that, but might be good. And then one day we were recording, and I played 45 RPM in the room, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. We recorded it, and it was one of 54 songs. But there's something special about it, and so everyone was going, that'd be an amazing single, especially if it was by a young band, it'd be a hit, and I thought, well, let's try it out. And with nothing other than going to meet a plugger called Dylan White, who did Oasis at the time, and U2, and Primal Scream, and everyone that was cool at the time. I took it down to him, and James Stevenson, the guitarist himself, went in. He knew us a bit, and then he said, look, Mike, I'm a big fan of the Alarm, but not everyone else is, and unfortunately it's not like Noel Gallagher is name dropping you everywhere, or something, Jake Bugg's going, and not that he was around at that time, but that the equivalent. And he goes, I just feel like you've got a great thing doing what you do, but you don't belong at Radio 1 anymore, or Radio 2 even. And he's going, so I'd be wasting your time if I said I'll take your record round and plug it, because it's not right. Just be doing you a disservice. Better off putting it out to your own fans, sell it at your gigs, get on with it. So we got chatting, and he was going, what else is going on? I said I was managing this band from Wales that are really good. Building a big following in North Wales. And I said, let me hear that. So I've got a CD, put it on. 30 seconds into the track, goes, Mike, I'll get this on the radio like that. And he clicked his fingers right in my face. And I said, well, that's an Alarm record. He went, whoa, hold on, you got me there. That's you, incredulous. Yeah. And he goes, well, look, I've been had, so give me a week. Let me play it to a few people, and I'll just do what you've done. Say, hey, what do you think of this new band? And see what they say. So about a week later, he phones me up and he goes, Mike, I played it to Steve Lamacq and to Chris Moyles at Radio 1. They've got mad for it. They think it's amazing. I said, oh, great. What did they say when you told them it was the Alarm? And he goes, well, I didn't have the courage to tell them it was the Alarm because they went mental for it. We're going to put it on the playlist and all this. I said, right, okay, what are we going to do? And he says, we're going to have to release it by the Poppy Fields, which is the fake name we created for it. And that was the name of the album. So it all tied in. The whole thing exploded from there, and we got into the top 30 straight away. And it got revealed on the top of the Pops that the Alarm were the Poppy Fields in disguise, and it just went whoosh like a rocket around the world. I was on CBS News with Dan Rather, and everyone heard about it, and it put us right back where we wanted to be. It was the biggest moment that ever happened to the bands. It was like a 68 Guns moment. It was absolutely incredible, and it became what was about to be a launch pad for a whole new take on the Alarm's career. But unfortunately, a year later, I was diagnosed with leukemia, and put a lot of plans to head for a while.
Slowed the momentum, Will.
Yeah, it's like just that, I could only do 1 gig a month instead of 30, which isn't great for your rock and roll career. But in a way, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened in the strangest.
Do you think, to a certain extent, it exposed kind of ageism and how people will 100%, dismiss bands 100%.
Because there's a lot of stories I could tell you about that went on, but of when people found out and what they did and what they didn't do, and what the sad part about it was that when it got into the charts and it was revealed it was the Alarm, the people who were championing it instantly dropped it and pretended it had never happened. And I thought that said it. That action alone said it all. Not forget what we did. And it's sad that and ironically in the same week Madonna was about to pull the same sort of trick a week later, and Delamitri from Scotland, I heard, we're about to do a single under another name, but we kind of beat into it as that's the kind of sort of fate that follows us around. And, you know, we did a single called The Chant Has Just Begun the same week as Level 42 did The Chant Has Begun. It was like, wow, of course they had a hit, we didn't. But yeah, it was a big turning point for the band, and then for you know, especially for the modern era band. It was a great moment.
Yeah, no, I think it did set up a new platform, but as I said, to me it exposed, because for me an artist grows with their work, and their work, if you follow anybody's career, whether it's Dylan, Bowie, you follow their work, stuff at the end. Johnny Cash is the perfect example. Look at his last 6 albums. You know what you're doing, you're mature, you're responsible, you're skilled at your craft, and sadly that tends to be ignored.
It does.
Because it's not the new flavour.
The music industry ignores that, but fans don't. Fans stick with bands, you know, even if they've had a bad review. It seems to be only the tastemakers in the industry that drop bands quick and move on. Yeah, I personally think that, you know, I'm so glad the NME's over pretty much as a free paper now. You know, they ruined so many bands' careers. Bands that could have made great records, but they were so callous about them. They were persecuted as certain artists for their own gain. And I'd love to see someone write the book about the death of rock and roll as caused by rock and roll journalism. It's got a lot to answer for, and it never gets caught taken to task. They say, oh, was it the hippie dumb? Was it punk? Was it metal? Was it grunge? Well, let's look at the journalists. They're the ones that are the mouthpiece, and they've caused more damage, ruined music for thousands of people. There's
a quote from the filmmaker Kevin Smith I use quite a lot. It's that, critique art all you want, however, never discourage an artist. Because if you put down an artist, you will get absolutely nothing. To the point.
That's right.
If you don't like it, you can critique it on many levels. That's your
people,
opinion, but never the
artists,
artist, you know, as opposed to the art. Separate them, you know.
A lot of artists come to music and they're sensitive people. You know, you might have a front, you might look like you know what you're doing, you might be a singer and you can strut your stuff on the stage, but when you come to creating music, everyone's insecure. And that needs to be nurtured, not destroyed by heavy-handed journalists like they used to employ at the NME, who were in pre-social media times using bands with an audience, bands that would support, bands with fans that would support them, that would write letters to the NME and the Melody Maker. They were the ones they targeted, like U2.
I'm trying to remember a particular NME journalist's name. I can picture him, his glasses, his curly balding hair, Danny something, and Depeche Mode's first greatest hits, the back of the album, is covered with bad reviews from this one NME journalist.
Paolo Hewitt, who did he smashed the alarm in the NME, but he was a big fan when we were in Melody Maker. And then when he went to the NME, he never said, we did a first interview for the NME with him, like he'd been at the Melody Maker as champion, you know, to our faces. Oh, great gig, lads, brilliant, this. But he was just setting us up. And then he massacred us in print. He did the same to Morrissey. He picked up on Morrissey from an interview he did in America, saying that Morrissey had sang in Panic, Burned Down the Disco. He took a line that some interview Morrissey did where he said, well, I just don't like disco music. He turned that into that Morrissey was a racist against all forms of disco music, which meant black culture, and massacred him in the NME. And it's like, when are we going to take this guy to task? You know, I know probably we never will, but if you're ever looking for a great subject for a book, there's one. But no one's written it yet. You know, you think of the persecution for some bands' albums when they came out that are the biggest selling albums in the world. Led Zeppelin for a start.
Led Zeppelin have never had a good review in the British press. Neither did, if you look at Iggy Pop's Passenger, it was destroyed. Berlin by Lou Reed was destroyed.
Let's go the whole way. The Pistols. The Clash. You know, I mean, they all got smashed to death.
A little part of me that does this job kind of, well, you know, they have some use, but, you know, I am also aware, having read all those reviews for years, it's like, were they at the same gig I was at, or did they listen to the same CD? Or
one guy's name shall remain off the record, because I can't remember it. Nick Dewden, maybe? For Mojo, we had... Alan Jones, who's the editor of Mojo, phoned our PR guy, Dave Clark, from Planet in the UK at the time, and said, Dave, want to review the alarm album? And he'd send it to this guy, Nick Duerden, his name was, overnight. Dave puts it in the post overnight to be signed for. The review comes out, the guy slaughters us, says we're from South Wales, gets all the song titles wrong. And you're thinking, wow, he really... I thought, that guy ain't even listened to the record.
Yeah.
He's just sat, and 2 weeks later, not signed for, unpicked up for, from the post office comes the album that we'd overnighted to this guy. This guy hasn't even picked up the album from the post office. How could he have possibly... He just wanted his 300 quid for his review before the deadline. And so the magazine made it up to us by printing all the letters from the fans in the next month. But, you know, these guys need to be... You know, and that's why we survive, don't we? Because they, in a weird sort of way, the fact that they knock us down means we get up again and we keep going.
I do have a note here of critics versus fans, because I was going to ask about the reviews versus when you look at the actual physical sales. One thing I did Google, you're up nearly 6 million total records, 16 top 50 singles and 6 top 50 albums in the UK.
Yeah. That,
by no small measure, is public support.
Yeah,
you know, those numbers.
That's what's fantastic. You know, after in '92, after the alarm had broken up at Brixton, I didn't want to go back into the music industry. I was so smashed by it and burnt, and it used to upset me when I'd meet fans on the... Because I spent a lot of time before and after gigs talking at the backstage door, hanging out with the fans. The amount of people that say to me, Mike, we phoned IRS Records and we said, when's the new album coming? None of your business, bang, slammed the phone down. I thought, ow. And so I took a long view of the way artists had a relationship with the audience. So I thought, let's open the phone line. Let's have a phone line. People can call up and they can speak to, not me necessarily, but my family, people who care about me, the band, the fans, the legacy we're creating. And at the time I thought, I'm going to put my own record out. I'm not going to put it with EMI, did the alarm and all this stuff. I thought, just get told out there, you know? And everything had changed, and grunge had come along, and it was like, wow, that really has changed the landscape for the time being. So just get your head down and just make the music you want to make, and as long as you have faith in the quality of your music, it will always stand up when people come back round to look at it. Wow, I missed that one. Oh, I missed that one. Missed that one. And it will stack up eventually in the long term. And everyone thought we were mad, or I was mad. But you know, I started off. I managed to get access to the Alarm fan club names. I was denied it at first. Said, "You're not in the Alarm anymore. You can't have the name of the fan club." And it was like, And then this is all before social media, but then after about 6 months the girls who ran the fan club said, hey Mike, you were always the one that did all the letters to the fans, so we haven't heard it from anyone else, so here's the letters again. So I was able to write, I wrote to every Alarm fan that I had an address for personally, and said, here's a phone number if you've got any questions you want to know about anything, future gigs, you just call this number. And it's all there, and it's dedicated to your needs, and that's the foundation of everything I do today. I'm totally independent, totally self.
A lot of people know me as an old bloke who took up the internet really early. I was 1991. I was dialing up on 186.
Yeah,
before,
me too.
You know. You explain to people now that when Internet Explorer originally crashed, you spent 3 hours reinstalling your whole OS from 8 floppy disks. You know, it was a different world.
It was, yeah.
But as soon as I got online, I was 15, whatever it was, there was an MPO online, and there was the Alarm fan group on Yahoo groups. I think that was the first one founded.
That was, yeah.
Before anybody else even thought of the internet, you'd adopted it.
The Beatles had stuff, and the big bands, but they were defunct groups by then. They were just people sharing their memories or their catalogue numbers or whatever. But the Alarm was an ongoing situation. That was a big turning point. But that I worked in computers. When I saw the Pistols, I was a computer operator, so I had a foot in that world. But it wasn't really me, it was Steve Fulton, who's our webmaster from California, who was always writing in letters and phoning up and saying, we've got to get Mike and the Alarm on the internet. and he, I think if you listen to your fans, listen to your audience, then you're not really going to go too far from the path if you're all working towards the same goal. And I think sometimes when in the 80s I felt we got a bit disconnected from our fans because we'd go into a rehearsal room for months on end and you wouldn't come out and you thought, wow, the Stone Roses have come on, wow, it's all changed out there. and you were so wrapped up in everything, you stopped being a fan. The band process of growing up with four lads and becoming a band, it stops you, the internal dynamic of that it's not really healthy, you know, expecting four people to sit in a room like this for 10 years and come out of it the same way they walked in, and that's quite damaging. It not only distances from each other, the close quarters we were in, it actually distances us from our audience, so we couldn't quite relate. Different people respond to change in different ways, and so I just felt I needed to go right back to basics, just make music and see where a lot of people, they can't give up the trappings of success, you know, like taxis to rehearsal rooms, road crew set up, all the equipment and the PA systems all there, and there's a hotel at night, and there's PDs and a bar, and there's fruit on the table in the rehearsal rooms and catering at lunchtime, and without that they can't function. And I always used to say to myself, look, this is...
Now, I came across it in a strange place, and I was able to remember the name, very common Welsh name. Martin Jones wrote a book about Welsh history, and covered in some extent your contribution, which was Welsh history since 1939, and I'm misquoting because I'm working from memory, but essentially it was, you know, despite what critics may have said, if you want to take the zeitgeist of Wales from this time to this time, look at Mike Peters' lyrics. Find out what he's singing about. You know, and you have received awards in Wales and stuff.
Absolutely.
Did you ever think of that when you were starting out? I know it's...
No,
you know,
when I was growing up in Wales, I didn't dislike Wales. I just felt it was holding me back. I felt I was looking everywhere. You know, there was, when you looked at the music press, it was one minute it was like, wow, there's all these bands happening in Belfast and Northern Ireland, and then next minute they're all happening in Scotland, and they're all happening in Liverpool, they're all happening in Manchester. Well, nothing's happening here where I live. So I wasn't one to sit back. I always made the endeavour to go and, you know, when I was a kid, the first ever gig was in Birmingham to see Black Sabbath, because they weren't going to come to North Wales and play. So that I'd always had that adventurous nature in me. Probably if you go to follow football, Manchester United, and not being afraid to go to a town and find your way to the ground and negotiate life. When you say the wrong thing, you could end up in the wrong place. and so then when rock and roll came, I just applied. I thought, I've got to go and see bands, and Wales was somewhere I wanted to escape from. But when we went to, the first night we played with U2 in America, in New York. It was the last night our first American tour with them. Mayor Ed Koch had come down, and he wanted to introduce U2, obviously, to get in front of all the people, but U2 thought, we don't want him on stage introducing us. He can do the alarm. So they passed it over to us, you know. So he goes on stage and goes, ladies and gentlemen, from Wales, England. The alarm was like, we're not from England. But by doing that and going on radio stations, hey, we've got this new band from England. No, we're not from England, we're from Wales. There's a distinction. It started making me think about Wales and thinking, I'm actually really proud of coming from Wales, and it's made me who I am, and being brought up on the streets and the town and the country elements that are special but collide, and the human beings that we are. I started to really want to get to know it, and after the Strength tour, we've been on the road for all our adult professional musical lives, if you like, from when we stopped from dreaming, thinking it's really happening. We never stopped touring right through those 81 to 86. And it was only then, after we played the Strength final shows, that I went home, and I was supposed to go on holiday like everyone else, and I thought, I just don't want to get on a plane again, and another suitcase, drag around after that. I thought, I'm going to get in my car and, go around Wales, and so I did. I went all around Wales, wrote about everything I could see, and it happened to be probably the real end of the Industrial Revolution. And all the pits were being torn down to be replaced by industrial business parks and the information age technology that we live in now. And I took a camera, took a guitar, a video to record. I just wrote about what I could see, and that became like the Eye of the Hurricane record. And through that journey, it was a little bit like a salmon swimming back up the river. I rediscovered myself. in a way. And as being a person from Wales, who that was my identity, and I saw a lot of things. I could see the beauty of Wales, but I could also see the troubles of Wales that hadn't been expressed because we were a bilingual nation.
Yeah.
A lot of our troubles were only really expressed in the Welsh language because they were the people who felt the most persecuted. I would sit at home at nights and see these great Welsh bands on video now on channel S4C, the Welsh channel. I think, wow, great, but I can't understand them. And then I'd see Gwynfor Evans, brilliant politician, come on, and he was all this rhetoric coming out in Welsh. I thought, I haven't got a clue what he said. Put some subtitles on, and when I go and see these bands in concerts, say, well, can't you introduce your song? No, he's selling out. I mean, can't you put subtitles? No, I'm selling out to the English. It's like, you're not. You're selling out to me. I'm Welsh. I might not understand you. I can't speak the language, but I'm as Welsh as you.
I was going to ask about the North-South divide because there is a definite north-south divide. I remember talking to a photographer friend of mine, Aled, raised Welsh speaking. Didn't learn English till he was 11 or 12. So
where is he from?
I can't pronounce it. It's in the valleys.
Okay.
There's a shop and 3 farms. That's
that's it.
He kind of had a little umbrage that somebody from Pontins, as he put it, would be singing about South Wales. Well, he's from up north. That's practically Liverpool. He doesn't have a right to sing in our language. And did you get out?
Yeah, loads of that. Yeah, loads of suspicion. Yeah, because they, as much as they wanted to break out of the ghetto, they still felt. I think there was a suspicion that it wasn't led by the charge wasn't led by pure Welsh speaker. as history often shows, it's someone who comes from the outside that can see. I just thought there was a massive talent, North, South Wales, musically, politically, that was cutting itself off from a massive heartland of Wales, of people who loved Wales but didn't speak the language and felt disenfranchised, felt underrepresented, caught in the middle, and I thought I could speak to these people because I am one of them.
Yeah.
But I'm also one of them as well because I did speak Welsh when I was in my first years, and so I knew I could sing Welsh and put it across as convincingly as anyone else.
Yeah.
But I think at first it was such a battlefront with the Welsh language and England that at the time there was all the burning of the cottages, holiday homes, people blowing them up, graffiti on all the English road signs, there was hunger strikes for Welsh television, people gluing up Direct Action, gluing up the bank machines because they weren't bilingual. I knew that it's like, do you really want a solution to that, or do you just enjoy the battle? Well, here's the solution, so let's embrace it. But for some people it was tough because it maybe meant their ghetto becoming public. You know, I would meet the band and say, why don't you sing in English? And they go, no way. And I said, well, what happens when you play in France? You know, why don't you sing? Why don't you introduce your song in English to me, so at least you can sing it in Welsh and I get a feeling for it. And so I thought, well, they're not going to change, so I'm going to have to become bilingual. And I presented it. No one had played the bilingual card in Welsh history. The Alarm became the first Welsh language band to get in the top 40. We weren't Welsh language, but we got that accolade, which we took from. It wasn't a Cyrff or Amtrefn or Fat Coffee Pawb or Llwybr Llaethog, all these other bands. It was us from Rill, Scouse band. You know, but sometimes those they're the eyes that are there to see. I think there's still a little bit of unacceptance of the Alarm's place in Welsh history because, you know, I'm not named Griff or Davydd. I haven't got, you know, but I'm as Welsh as them, and I've got my son's got a Welsh language school. I've made sure my boys are bilingual. They speak Welsh. They go to Welsh language school, and that's the renaissance in Wales that's happening. That people like myself, who are English-speaking Welshmen, want to recapture their culture. They can't through their adulthood because we're too stuck in our ways to go back and learn languages.
Old dogs and new tricks.
And we've got to bring the kids, so we make sure the kids are Welsh. And I think Wales is flourishing because of it. And,
the same is happening in Ireland. There was generations where we were forced the language and rejected it because of it. But now as adults, I see all my friends, making sure their kids watch cartoons in Irish.
Yeah, exactly. In 1989, I remember 85 was when Strength came out, and we did the first night of a tour. It was just before Strength came out. It was the Absolute tour. We played in Llandudno, and the Whistle Test came and filmed a feature on us. And as was our way, it was subtle. It wasn't something we said, look at us for. We just did it. Every time we played in Wales, we had Welsh language bands opening for us.
Yeah.
And the band opening for us the night we had the Whistle Test were called Mafia Mr. Hughes. They interviewed them, and they said, well, how do you feel like you're singing in Welsh in Wales to an audience, and the alarm from Wales, but everyone can understand, everyone's come to see them and not you. And then this guy says, well, no one can understand what the alarm's singing about anyway. And it's like, that's poor.
Yeah.
That's shit. I thought, okay, that's how you want it. and there was definitely that. The problem with Welsh art at that time, Welsh artists, is there was an arrogance about them. We had all these Welsh bands. Red Eye, my best mate who works for Bob Dylan now, he was, he go, Mike, why are we always having these Welsh language bands? They've got so much attitude when they come in. I said, why is that? And he goes, well, they've all been on TV in Wales, they think they're superstars, and they give us so much attitude about, they've forgotten that they're the opening act, and they think because they're Welsh language in Wales, it gives them a right to take over. And I think that there was an arrogance about, the politically sharp tongue element of the Welsh language was so right on that they'd forgotten there was another Wales sitting in there, sitting alongside them, wanting to support them, but they saw us as being part of the enemy, and we were them. And I think so when the enemy spoke up and said, we're just the same as you, it took a period of adjustment to get used to that. And now, to be fair, I am so embraced by all of Wales, and people can see I've built up a whole charity, and everyone knows that, they see what I do with my boys, and there's no question of my commitment to Wales. And but at the time there was, and just
not to mention the amount of tourism you bring to Llandudno every January.
Well, just to go on the Welsh scene, when we put the Change Newid album out bilingually, again I think people thought, what they do, why are you doing that? They must be making millions. It's like, look, we're not. Just put a Welsh language album. We could be number one by selling 5 copies in Llansan Pride. But at the time, the paper Wales on Sunday, they mistranslated our translation. We had a song called Scarlet on the Change album, which means a scar lad with an L. They thought it was called divorce, and we translated it wrong, because divorce means a scar e-ad with an I instead of the L. And they thought, a scandal, they've done this album in Welsh and they've got all these lyrics wrong, this divorce song should be called this. And it's like, no, we haven't got a song called divorce, it's called You're Wrong. So we had to contend with all that, you see. That assumption that because they were Welsh language, they were right, and it wasn't always the case. And we were trying to say, look, let's give and take here. We need to be on the same side, not opposing forces in our own country. We can transform Wales, and that's what's happened together by Wales embracing bilingualism, putting the signs in dual language, having some devolved government so we can have a voice in the Senedd, having Welsh MPs, AMs, all that kind of thing. It's really helped to create a much bigger identity. And then the Welsh language bands that were all supporting us, Faculty Pal became Super Furry Animals, well they never actually supported us, but there was Kirch became Catatonia, all that kind of thing. They became the cool Cymru bands, if you like.
I've heard maybe 5 different versions of the stories revolving the MTV Unplugged that never happened. Do you want to tell that again, or do you want it?
Well, if you want it, it's a bit of a gruesome story. Well, we were in America, and it was December 89, the last days of the decade, and we've been approached to play Unplugged as it started. Alex Coletti, who founded Unplugged, was a big Alarm fan, and I knew him quite well. I met him at WNEW in York when the Hurricane came out, and I was the first interview I did, and I signed a copy. He asked me to sign a copy of the album for his brother. It was really for him, and I said, "Dear Roger," his brother's name, "this is the first copy of I the Hurricane I've ever signed. Mike Peters." And Alex was going, "Thanks," thinking, "Oh no, I've got to give it to Roger now. How was supposed to be for me?" But anyway, he went on to create Unplugged, and he wanted his favourite band, the Alarm, and we agreed to do it. And then the day before the show, my mum phoned me because my sister had a brain hemorrhage back in Wales 3 days before, and my mum had kept it quiet from me because she didn't want me to worry or do anything daft and fly home. But she phoned me and said, "Look, Mike, we've kept this from you." And she was on, Jules, my wife, was on the phone as well, and said, "Look, your sister's in a really bad way. We thought she'd just come through and we didn't want to burden you while you were on that tour." But my mum said, "Look, I think I wouldn't do this, but I think if you don't come home tonight, you'll never see your sister again alive." So we cancelled some shows, fly back to Liverpool Airport, Manchester Airport, and get my brother picked me up and Jules, and went to the hospital. My dad was there, my mum, brother, and it was heavy. The doctors had said to me, my dad, "Look, Mr. Peters, we're going to have to switch the machines off." There was a brain hemorrhage. There was 15% chance it could go wrong at the time, and they said to my sister, "Look, do you want us to shave all the hair off?" And she said, "No, just shave there when I'm going to have the operation, because I'm a hairdresser and I'll be able to do something with it and come back, and sort it out." But she never came back. And so we stayed up all night as a family praying, and my dad, there was only one of us allowed in the intensive care unit at the time. And so my dad took the brunt of it. He saw when they switched off the machines, he saw the spasms, convulsions and the shaking, and it destroyed her. But she never passed away. She survived. Yeah. And we could, by the morning I was like, "This is a miracle." And she's still alive, and they went, "There's no way she should be alive." And there was the odd word coming out, and I thought, "Oh, this is amazing." I went back to America thinking, "Oh, well, my sister's going to be all right in the long run." I could see it was going to be a massive battle to recover, but I thought, she's still here. And the flight back was the anniversary of Lockerbie. It was hell at the airport, and I flew all the way, and we were shooting the Love Don't Come Easy video. And while I was away, Dave and Nigel went in to do Unplugged. Eddie didn't want to do it. He said, "We can't do it without Mike," but Dave saw it as an opportunity to promote himself, so he went in and did it. We could have done it 3 weeks later, so I've never got to be on Unplugged. And Alex always in his book says, "It's the moment, it's the one that got away." Yeah. It was disappointing, really, and then we were filming the video for Love Don't Come Easy. It had all been booked. Russell Young was the director. I was supposed to go with him on a day off down to sort of New Mexico to shoot in the White Sands, but he dressed up like me in a denim jacket and wore the hat and did all the jumping round that looks a bit like me, but it's really the film director who was at the Sex Pistols gig in 1976, same one I was at. And then he was shooting the performance studio part, so I got to the airport and I'm waiting, and I thought, so I phoned the tour manager. "Oh, Mike, sorry, I forgot you were coming in. You're going to have to get a cab." I was like, "Oh, right, okay." So me and Jules got an attack. The traffic was horrific. So I slept all the way to the studio in the car, jumped out the car, did the Love Don't Come Easy video, straight to the hotel, got my clothes on, went to the Ritz venue we were playing it, which was the old dance, Disco 54 or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
called.
Studio 54.
Studio 54, which was a 4,000 cap venue, and we were playing there, and straight on stage, amazing gig, come off stage and there's Neil Young, with Peggy, his wife anyway. Long-standing wife at the time, and he said to me, I said, "Oh, well, Neil, we're going to play your song in a minute because I've come to hear it." and I said, "Well, you're going to come up and play?" Yeah. And he kind of looked at Peggy and he went, "Go on, I know you want to." So I go, "Okay, I'm in." He goes, "But I don't want to be introduced, and I'm only going to play guitar, no singing." He said, "Look, it's your song, you do what you like." So I jump on the stage, bam, smash out the chords, the lights go up, and everybody bounce, and there's a second cheer. And everyone realises, "Oh my God, that's Neil Young at the back of the stage." And next minute, keep on, he pushes me out of the way, and he takes over the singing and the second verse, which is brilliant. He riffed away, he had all the presence and the magnificence that we know. And then I walked off the stage and collapsed. Got taken to the hotel, and I hadn't slept for apart from an hour in the car maybe, or something, for something like 4 days or something like that. You know, it was heavy. And to be honest, at the end of it, it was a little bit of blame from that I didn't need to have cancelled the dates because my sister had survived, and it was like, why did we have to do all that? And Dave going on MTV without the rest of the band to represent the Alarm, I didn't think that was the best thing. When Alex has told me, I was quite happy to wait. Yeah. And you know, we could have done something really special. So it was, I think it was the end of the 80s, and I think really the kind of
the beginning of the end.
And then from then on, I felt a little bit, you know, in a real moment of need, my need, I've been kind of like pushed to one side and trampled over and made to feel a bit like bad about it. Not by everybody, but there was definitely because it was the end of the tour. I understood. Because the profit of a tour is in the last 4 or 5 dates, you know, and we had to cancel them. But there was a vibe, you know. People thought, "Wow, you shouldn't have gone if your sister's alive. Why did you go?" There was definitely it was implied, and I felt a bit of resentment. And then after that, when we started touring again, I was still trying to communicate with my sister. She couldn't speak. Still trying to track friends down, thinking that what that person she knew in 1984 would walk in the room and open the door into her imagination and her mind again and play songs in a hospital room. And Dad died as he never got over it. And then it was a really bad time. And to be honest, Nigel's own stepfather, Peter, who'd been the manager of 17 when we first started, he committed suicide not long after that as well, and Nigel found him. And that we were too fragile to stand strong in that moment. And that's what really took the relationship, and the relationship was in the band, so that was the end of it. Really. Yeah,
that led to the Ziggy Stardust moment. We'll call it at Brixton.
Yeah, that was a spur of the moment thing, because again, I think with history, people don't realise, because there's no internet so much then. They don't look at what happened the day after Brixton and see, oh, there's Dave Sharp playing in New York the day after Brixton. They don't see that. And we were supposed to have a meeting the next day. I didn't want to break the band up as such, really. I just wanted it to put it to bed for a while and do what most bands do. Don't say anything. But then in the afternoon, Dave was, I can't have the meeting tomorrow. I've got to get on a flight plane in New York, and the cameras were rolling, and I thought, let's commit it to YouTube. Even though I didn't know it was going to be. I'm sort of an all or nothing guy.
Yeah.
I have been, you know, when music says that, that's the way I am.
The Dead Man Walking covering the song All or Nothing.
Yeah, there you go, You know, never give up that fight, that's me.
Yeah.
And you either love me or loathe me, that's who I am. And it's the only way you can be through life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm straight up, everything you see, what you see is what you get. And that's why I'll go on camera and say, I'm leaving the band, because I mean it. You know, I might come back one day, but I mean it right there and then. And that's the same guy who's Unsafe Building is standing in front of you right now.
Always loved the B-side, Unbreak the Promise.
Yeah.
Did you rewrite that as the rock and roll on the Poppy Fields album, or is that my imagination? Because there's certain hints of it, there's certain melodies, and
it alludes to it.
It alludes to it.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that's part of what I was talking about earlier when I was touring the Alarm again in 2001 and 2, and going back to the songs like Unbreak the Promise, thinking, wow, we never recorded this. It was never finished. It's and I was singing the lines, and that definitely bled into the rock and roll. But there's references to where we're hiding in the rock and roll. There's references to One Step Closer to Home. There's references to
David Bowie,
all the things that have made me the person I am. That's why I was talking about. When we got to the Poppy Fields album, that's what made me want to make new music in the name of the Alarm, because I was the only one who could make those lyrical connections because they were my words.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, funny enough, when I did Strength in 2015 and revisited the whole, all the songs, and I went back into my notebook. My dad at Christmas used to give me a notebook to write lyrics in for the following year, every year, and the Strength notebook I've obviously got, and I went back to it. And I looked through the book and I realised 2 more verses to Unbreak the Promise that I never got to sing, because it was only ever recorded at the BBC the night before Declaration came out, was finished. We never took it into the studio, so last year I created the opportunity to revisit everything about Strength, and I recut Unbreak the Promise with the extra verses for the majority companion album,
Yeah.
and recorded it how we would have done it if we'd made it a 4-verse song that would have started with an acoustic guitar. It's a bit more Mott the Hoople.
Yeah.
And you can hear the sort of final, and I think that the 4 verses even reference back some of the things that are in rock and roll as well. so
it's become meta now.
The rock and roll in between Unbreak the Promise 1984 and Unbreak the Promise 2015 is the rock and roll, and I think that is probably my subconscious realising I'd left 2 verses behind for that song that I hadn't realised were there. So, and that's how the creative mind works, isn't it? You write all these words, you put them down on paper, but they don't leave your consciousness. They're still echoing in your mind, and sometimes you grab a fragment of them and think, oh yeah, that's a new song, and then you realise, I did it with 68 Guns in 2014. We revisited Declaration, went back to all the notes I had kept from Declaration. Or, I read something about George Harrison when I was a kid, getting into their music, that he kept every scrap of paper that he ever had with his lyrics on, whether at the back of the fag packet, napkins, kept them in a box. So I started doing that, and I kept everything from my start right all the way through. And I looked at the first draft of the lyric of 68 Guns, and it was written as a street play. It had names attached to each line in the song, and I looked at a few sheets of paper as it developed and became the recorded song. When we came to record it with Declaration, we'd been advised to cut it down because it was 2 verses and bridges before we got to the chorus, and the producer and the label and the manager,
don't chorus, get to the chorus.
First chorus, don't mess about. So we just went with the first verse straight to the verse chorus. When I was reading the lyrics again, I thought, oh my goodness, I've chopped the meaning out of the song. The second verse was what 68 Guns was all about. Never mind just 68, it was what 68 Guns, Mike Peters and the Alarm by extension were about. And the line was, if they take our chances, we'll create our own. And that is what the Alarm, or Mike Peters, or 68 Guns is all about. And it wasn't in the song.
Brilliant.
2014.